The beast of Blackmoor Keep. The wind howled through the jagged cliffs of Blackmoor, carrying with it the scent of death and decay. For centuries, Blackmoor Keep had stood as a fortress of stone, perched atop the cliffs like a vulture, overlooking the dark, wild forest below. Once a symbol of protection for the nearby village, the keep had long been abandoned. No one dared to set foot inside it anymore, for fear of the beast that was said to dwell within. The stories of the beast were old, passed down through generations, whispered around firesides late at night. They said the creature had been a man once a knight of the keep, noble and strong, but cursed by dark magic after betraying his lord for power. His treachery had cost him his humanity, transformed into something monstrous. He now roamed the halls of Blackmoor, feasting on any who were foolish enough to enter his domain. The villagers called him the Devourer. It had been years since anyone had last seen the creature, but the keep was still feared. Even on the brightest of days, the shadow of Blackmoor Keep loomed over the village like a curse. Farmers refused to work in the fields that stretched too close to the cliffs, and children were forbidden from playing near the forest edge. But there was one who did not fear the keep. Her name was Elara, the daughter of a blacksmith, and she had grown up hearing the tales of the Devourer. Where others saw a monster, Elara saw an opportunity. Her brother, Marcus, had gone missing 3 weeks prior, vanishing into the woods one stormy night. Some said he had run away, while others whispered that the beast had taken him. Elara refused to believe it. Marcus was a strong hunter, and he had always been cautious near the forest. He wouldn't have wandered into the keep, or would he? On a moonless night, Elara made her decision. She strapped her father's old sword to her waist and took a lantern, determined to find answers. She would go to Blackmoor Keep, face whatever lurked inside, and find out what had happened to her brother. The path to the keep was overgrown, the road forgotten by time. The further she walked, the heavier the air became, thick with an unnatural chill. It was as though the forest itself recoiled from the presence of the keep. The silence was eerie, broken only by the crunch of her boots on dead leaves. As Elara approached the ancient stone walls, she felt a sense of dread settle over her. The gates of Blackmoor hung open, creaking in the wind, an ominous invitation. She swallowed her fear and stepped through. Inside, the keep was a labyrinth of shadows. The walls were covered in moss, and the scent of rot filled the air. Her lantern flickered, casting long, distorted shadows that seemed to shift and move in the corners of her vision. The corridors were empty, but she felt eyes watching her, hidden in the darkness. Elara. She froze. The voice was soft, almost a whisper, echoing through the halls. It sounded like Marcus. Marcus, she called out, her voice trembling. There was no response, but the whispering continued, now seeming to come from deeper within the keep. Against her better judgment, she followed the sound. The further she went, the colder it became, until her breath fogged in front of her. The walls closed in around her, narrow and suffocating, until she reached a heavy iron door. It was slightly ajar, the hinges rusted with age. She pushed the door open and stepped into a large, dimly lit chamber. At the far end, sitting upon a crumbling throne, was a figure cloaked in shadows. The creature was massive, its form twisted and grotesque, barely resembling a man. Its skin was pale and stretched, its limbs unnaturally long. But what caught Ilara's eye was the glint of metal. A suit of armor, rusted but still recognizable, lay at the creature's feet. It was the armor of the Knights of Blackmoor, and beside it, crumpled on the floor, was Marcus. Ilara's heart lurched. She rushed forward, dropping to her knees beside her brother. His body was cold, his skin pale, and his eyes wide open, staring into nothing. But he wasn't dead. His chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, as though trapped in a nightmare he could never wake from. Ilara, the voice again, but this time it wasn't Marcus who spoke. It came from the creature on the throne. Slowly it rose, towering over her, its eyes black pits of void locked onto hers, and its mouth twisted into a grotesque grin, revealing rows of sharp, yellow teeth. "He's mine now," the beast rasped, its voice slithering through the air like poison. "He came to me, seeking power, just as I once did." Ilara drew her sword, her hand shaking as she pointed it at the creature. "Let him go." The devourer laughed, a low, rumbling sound that shook the very walls. "You think you can fight me, girl? I was a knight once. I was stronger than any man, feared on the battlefield, but now I am something more." Ilara's grip tightened on the hilt of the sword. "You're a monster." The creature's grin widened. "Perhaps, but I am eternal, and soon, so will your brother be." With a snarl, Ilara charged. The devourer moved faster than she could have imagined, its long, clawed arms sweeping toward her with deadly force. She barely dodged, rolling to the side and slashing at its leg. Her sword connected, but it was like striking stone. The creature didn't even flinch. It lashed out, catching her across the chest with one of its claws. She cried out as the force of the blow sent her crashing into the wall. The wind knocked from her lungs. Pain seared through her, but she forced herself to stand, blood dripping from her wounds. "You cannot win," the devourer hissed, "but you can join him. Give in to the darkness, and I will grant you power beyond imagining." Ilara staggered to her feet, her vision swimming. She looked at Marcus, his face still frozen in that eternal nightmare, and her resolve hardened. She would not let this monster take him. With a scream of defiance, she lunged forward, aiming for the creature's heart. The devourer moved to strike, but this time she was ready. She ducked under its swing and drove the sword upward with all her strength. The blade sank into the creature's chest, and for a moment the chamber was silent. The devourer let out a sound of rasping, gasping wheeze, as though it had not felt pain in centuries. Its black eyes widened in shock, and it stumbled backward, collapsing onto the throne. You cannot," it whispered, its voice fading. But it was too late. The creature shuddered, its body dissolving into a cloud of black smoke. As the smoke swirled and vanished, the oppressive weight that had hung over the keep lifted. The air felt lighter, the shadows retreating. Ilara collapsed beside her brother, tears streaming down her face. Slowly, Marcus's breathing returned to normal, and his eyes fluttered open. "Ilara," he whispered, weak but alive. She smiled through her tears. "I'm here, you're safe." They left Blackmoor Keep together that night, the curse broken, the beast defeated. But even as they descended the cliffs, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that something still lingered in the shadows of the keep. The devourer might be gone, but the darkness that had corrupted him still remained, waiting for another soul to claim.